I get asked a lot why I started this podcast. So when I started the podcast, I honestly was just missing being on radio. And I was adamant in leaving show business altogether. I just wanted to try a different thing. But then I felt like God called me to a different path. And I ended up signing with a TV network. And eventually I started missing being on radio because I was doing TV so much. I was doing a lot of on camera work. Honestly, really loved being behind the camera and, being able to express my thoughts and my ideas and hashing it out in audio format. So I started creating this podcast, and I honestly didn't think it was going to be this thing now, which is a guide for 20 somethings like myself. During that time, it was just for me. I wanted something that could help me express what I was going through. I just turned 25 at that time, and I was going through a lot, with a breakup and then a career shift and having this quarter life crisis of some sort. And so I just created it for myself. I didn't want it to be a regular thing, it was just something that I did for myself. But I finally decided that I would do it for other people, that I would have a bigger purpose for it. And all those messages of people telling me how the podcast has helped them fueled me to keep creating it for a bigger purpose. So it wasn't really like an instant event that happened. It was over the course of maybe a couple of weeks of getting all of these amazing messages from my listeners and from people all over the world. Like when the podcast started, I became number one in iTunes and in Spotify. I create this podcast because I want people to feel like we belong to a community, that there is a place for you. This is a safe space for you to express that and to find other people who are not here to judge you, but to offer you different perspectives, maybe help, and maybe even just a listening ear. And eventually, because of that, I finally made the decision to take that purpose, which is to help other people going through the same things that I was going through, and then put it into action by being more consistent about creating podcasts, being more intentional about the topics that I would cover. So consistency meaning before I would release podcast episodes sporadically, like maybe once every 4 weeks, once every 2 months. But then I decided, okay, I'm going to start doing a weekly thing. I thought about, okay, what are the things that I'm struggling with that I feel like a lot of other people my age are also struggling with? And what can I do to create that into a podcast episode? And then also, like when the pandemic came about, we started doing a daily podcast because I felt like I was just going through a shocking stage in life. Like, who knows how to handle a pandemic? We've never experienced the pandemic, and now it's happening in 2020. We were just flabbergasted. And so I asked one of my best friends, Erin Taida, to join me on the podcast, and we started doing an everyday podcast called Shot of Sanity, just to get a shot of sanity in the craziness of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we put our ideas into action. We started creating a community online, and we have just gotten thousands of messages from people telling us that Shot of Sanity and Adulting with Joyce Pring have become their friend, their confidant, and their little family throughout this whole pandemic. And, I really realized that it's okay if you don't exactly know your purpose just yet. It takes a lot of trial and error, just like what I did. And sometimes it's really just preparation, meeting opportunity, which is basically what this podcast became. Lastly, and I know this is easier said than done, enjoy and trust the process. You will inevitably experience ups and downs on the journey of discovering your purpose and working towards it. But that's all a part of the learning process. There is so much waiting for you when you step outside of your comfort zone, and in the end, you will be grateful you did it. So that's it, you guys. That is my story of how I turned a potential idea into a purposeful project, which is Adulting with Joyce Pring. And I hope the stories that I shared with you and the tips that I gave you are things that could really help you get motivated to work with a purpose. At the end of the day, we have limited time here on earth, and it's really about the quality of things that we try to do with the little time that we have. It's about investing our time and not letting it just pass by us. Time is a perishable good. And so we must learn to invest it so that we will not waste it. And I hope that you find that for yourself. I hope you find something that you enjoy doing, that you are willing to work hard for, but also that you can use for a bigger purpose apart from just self-fulfillment. So that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Adulting with Joyce Spring. Don't forget to join us in our Facebook group at Adulting with Joyce Spring /Shot of Sanity. And also follow us at Adulting with Joyce Spring. Check out joyspring.com for everything else in between. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. Paalam!